Well, welcome everyone. Mike LaBelle here with you, along with Ray Croteau Jr. and Greg Buchanan. We're going to take a couple minutes because people need to log on, as you're well aware. So this is the time where you grab your favorite beverage. I'm drinking water because it's good for you, Ray. What are you drinking?
I have a sarsaparilla.
A sarsaparilla.
A little
Mr. Buchanan, what do you have in your...
Just a glass of water. That's all I got going on.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. We'll give people another 30 seconds or so to log on, and we're going to have some fun here with them. As again, of course, it's right after supper, and depending, where you're at and where you're watching from, it could be a little bit later than what we are. So we're going to give you a couple minutes time.
All the Leafs fans out there might be still watching the game. So,
what's the score?
I think it's 2-0. No, I was an Edmonton Oilers fan. No, I'm not really a fan of a team, a fan of players more than anything. But yeah, it's out in Alberta country. If you're north of Red Deer, you're not very happy with the results from last night.
Well, I did read a fact today, and I'm big on facts. The Edmonton Oilers won as many playoff games as the Calgary Flames did this year.
There's a statement.
Yeah, there we go. What was the total rain count of our last little storm we had come through here, Greg? Have you heard?
I haven't heard. We're getting more potentially tonight. I know we're going to get more before the end of the week, but then it's going to get really hot. And talking to some of the farmers out there, the rain that we did get, that's about $1 million rain potentially. So it definitely did need it.
Yeah. For sure. Well, looks like we're ready to go, gentlemen.
Perfect.
Welcome, everyone, to Let's Talk Chuckwagons. I'm Mike LaBelle, Ray Croteau Jr. beside me, and we're super happy that the vice president of the CPCA could join us, Greg Buchanan. Greg, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
This is going to be fun, of course. Let's Talk Chuckwagons, brought to you by Cinch Oilfield Hauling, along with Limelight Audio Media and Tractorland Kubota. So this is where we're going to have some fun. And I think I'm going to let Ray start off a little bit because, as someone who's an active driver, he's someone that you may have dealt with a little bit.
Oh, yeah, a few times.
That grin says it all. If you could tell us one Ray Croteau Jr. story, what would it be?
I've known Ray since he was a little one, and I can remember going to Bonnyville and covering his grandpa and his dad at their own homemade track there, and Ray kind of trying to keep up with everybody. And then got to know Ray later in life when he got a little taller, and you know what? And the whole Croteau family means something special to me, and we'll get deeper into what families mean to the sport, but 3 generations of drivers in that family. And I remember talking to Ray at the Calgary Stampede, and Ray probably remembers his interview and how emotional he was because he was having a hell of a Calgary Stampede. And I asked him what it meant to him, but what does it mean to your family? And that's where I got him to tear up a little bit. And I think he was pretty emotional that night. And to see that emotion, that passion in him, that's what you want to see in a driver.
No, for sure. And I can remember we interviewed him one night on a different level, and we asked him what it was like to be a philanthropist. I'm sure he still doesn't know what that means.
I was joking with you guys, feeding off it. I was like, what is that word? I don't even know what that word means. Anyways, threw him right off. But yeah, I spent, as long as I was in the wagons and had my career, Greg's voice was a part of it. So he goes back to any of the old announcers that you might have heard, announcing hockey or whatever that you grew up around and just got used to and felt at home with. So it's been good to be able to transition and from the wagons and do some of the radio stuff with Greg and actually see, Greg in his element and him, it just rolls out of him. He's such a natural and a professional to learn from. So it's a lot of fun. Very, very interesting. So
Well, and that's good. And let's look at some of the things you've done, Greg. You've worked in hockey. You've worked in curling, both men's and women's, the Brier and the Scotties. Yeah. You've worked in baseball, covering the Blue Jays and the Expos. You might not remember those, Ray. You've worked in football. You've been to the Pan Am Games. Yeah. You've worked a little bit of rodeo. You're a two-time Allen Cup champion as a manager with the Lloydminster Border Kings. And you are the who's who in CPCA for Chuckwagon racing. When do you sleep?
I've been asked that a few times. I'm involved in a few different things. And then, on top of that, I'm on 6 different boards here in town, from United Way to the Lloyd X, to Border City Connects, to the Tarp Recovery Center, just to name a few. On a project right now called a community fridge here in Lloydminster. So this fridge will be open for anybody that needs food at tough times we're going through COVID right now. I'm a true believer. This community, this region, the Northwest region, the Northeast region of Alberta, has been so good to me and has allowed me to do what I do for a living since 1989. So anything I can do to give back to this community and give back to the area, I think we always look to make a difference. And I'm just trying to make a difference in the community I live in.
Well, and we appreciate what you do. Now, I'm going to engage both of you in this next conversation. You've known Ray basically since he was in rubber boots and diapers. And, well, not much has changed. But either way, it's all good. Yeah. What are the biggest changes you guys have both seen in Chuckwagon racing, say, over that last 20 years?
I'll let Ray go.
I guess it's progression in rules and I guess track maintenance. I know a lot of the committees, and it comes down to the investment from every community and the committees and the people that are involved to make the sport faster and more eye appealing. It's a real spectator sport, right? So if the tracks are in peak condition and maintained throughout the season, not just during the races, you're going to have track records. You're going to have 2-3 wagons at the finish line, and that transitions into having a grandstand full and having a productive committee and a committee that makes money and puts on a great event, right? So outside of some rule changes and wagons being configured a little bit different, I would say the biggest is how people, take care of them racetracks and develop, their show around it. So
I think for me, we were putting a video together for the anniversary of the CPCA finals here in Lloyd, and I believe it was for 25 years. So we were looking at old footage, and then you look at today's footage, and you see the wagons, you see the horses from 20 plus years ago, and then you see the wagons and the horses from today, and you see the crowds. Pretty good crowd was 1,500 people. Now we're putting 3,000 people into the grandstand. So the growth of the sport, from the horses to the wagons to just how you present yourself now, and you see some of the liners pulling through, even in our association, and wow, and talking to the likes of Brian Labicane, and him and Brenda would go down the road and they would sleep in their horse trailer and hook up their 4 horses they got in that trailer, and that's what their outfit is for that day. Now it's you see some of the camping units, and you see the liners, and you see where some of these horses are coming from, and that's the great story we supply every weekend on the CPCA Radio Network, where these horses come from, and they come off racetracks all over North America. So when people show up to the races, it's great to tell them that they're the superstars of the sport. As much as the driver and the outriders are those ones that we talk about all the time, the superstars of the sport are thoroughbreds that are superstars from racetracks that come onto our racetrack, and they're given a whole new life. And I think that's one thing that's changed in the sport, and I love telling that story every weekend.
No, it is. And I mean, I look at it, and you look at the videos, like you say, from past days till now. You take away the stove box, you take away the tent pegs, you take away a couple outriders, and all of a sudden you've got a faster, quicker, more efficient, and they go now. Yeah. If you were to name And I guess, you and Ray can both do this because you've watched a lot more of it than I have. What would be a couple of the big highlights in the CPCA over the past decade or 15 years where, it's kind of like, wow, I can't believe that just happened in front of me. I mean, you guys are both on the radio together, so you get to talk about these things on and off the air.
Ray, you go ahead.
I think for me, it's obviously the investment again from the committees, but it's the you see the reserves that are involved now and the casinos and that side of things that they really make the CPCA kind of what it is, right? So it's a big investment and it's their heritage, right? Horses everybody grew up with, and it's their heritage. So they believe in the sport. They call the sport their own, and they support it right till from back in the day till this day we're talking right now. So I think there's very, very huge value in it and huge value in the future because everybody dreams about having that awesome hook of horses or just even their good old farm horse back in the day that their dad broke the land with or their grandfather broke the land with and did some logging, and they still talk about it to now, right? So it's a never-ending growth for the CPCA for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think the highlight, I don't think there's one highlight, but there's a highlight every year, and that highlight comes on a Sunday afternoon in August in Lloyd when after 3 months of racing we crown a champion. And to travel down the road with these guys for 3 months and knowing how much work they go into it. They get up at 6, 7 in the morning and they have morning runs on the track, and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into those horses and the time they spend with them and to see it pay off for that one time on that Sunday afternoon. That's the highlight. It's I don't think there's one that stands out for me. On a personal front, it's probably the CPCA Radio and how we have been able to reach out to fans that can't get to see the races and there's so many times, and you mentioned off the top at all the different sports I've covered and everything. I've been at Pan Am Games, I've covered Grey Cups and done freelancing for a lot of different networks, but at the end of the day everybody just knows me as the Chuckwagon guy, and I'm fine with that, and I love it. I'm from a sports background. And I always talk to my hockey team, my players, and I say, we're a family. We're a hockey family. You're there with your brothers, and we're there. The Border King team we won 2 Allen Cups with, and they're like my brothers. So I can pick up a phone tomorrow and call a player I haven't talked to for 5 years, and it's just like we were just at the rink yesterday. And it's no different with the Chuckwagons, and it's all one big family. And it's not just the CPCA, it's the WPCA. When we get down to Calgary, I have some great friends in the WPCA circuit, and you sit down and you talk to them just like family. And that's what the sport should still be. And we'll get to maybe we do need 2 associations. We do need the WPCA, we do need the CPCA, but more than anything, we need the sport. And we all have to support it as a family and protect it. And be passionate towards it and try to move it forward.
Well, and excellent. I couldn't have said it any better. You've encompassed what it is to be the true Chuckwagon fan. You're just fortunate to tell everyone about it as well. I'm going to bring something up quick here, friends. Our good friends at Cinch Oilfield Hauling have been kind enough to sponsor our trivia question of the day. So at the end of the show, we're going to talk about something that's happened within the show. That'll be our trivia question. Your chance to win a hoodie and a hat from our good friends at Cinch Oilfield Hauling. You guys both touched on Lloyd, and I have to ask you both because it's exciting news. Lloydminster, the new North American Chuckwagon Championships that are going to be happening there early in July. This has got to be exciting, Ray.
Yeah, they basically throwing a challenge out, right? And for Lloyd area and everybody involved, and I really know very little about who's involved and where the money's coming from and all the details, but obviously you lay down a 9-day show and throw up a bunch of cash and people are going to pay attention, right? So, and it overlaps the Calgary Stampede. So I'm pretty pumped about this. I'm looking forward to potentially being a part of it and seeing where it goes and helping it grow in the future and become, one of the mainstays over and above what Lloyd already does and contributes to the world or the CPCA finals.
I'll share this with you. I did an interview with Buddy Bensmiller at the Calgary Stampede about 6 years ago. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this. And 6 years ago, I said, what is one concern you have for the sport of chuckwagon racing? And he was pretty blunt. He says, we're too reliant on one show. And you know what show that is? That's the Calgary Stampede. We're too reliant on it. We need more options. So we're creating an option. And it's the same time as the Calgary Stampede. Yeah, we're going head to head with them. But the sport needs more options. It needs more big shows. It needs to make it worth their while to go down the road. For whether you're in the WPCA or CPCA, you can come to the North American Championship. It's going to be a first year. You know what? There's going to be some growing pains, but we look at this as a long term. And the Lloyd X is excited, and the CPCA is excited to put it on. And you know what? It's going to be an exciting 9 days here in Lloyd.
Well, and we talked about it off air. Competition is a good thing. I mean, that's the only way that people get better. And I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. This is going to be a fun show. I actually hope I get to come up there for a day or two and get the opportunity to see it live and in person. You talked about Buddy Bensmiller, and I guess from where I stand, there's a couple of guys, as you know, I've reported on Chuckwagons for a while, whether it be on radio or television. You've done it now for 18 years, Greg. You've been with the CPCA?
Yeah, 18 years.
18 years. And I mean, Ray's been interviewed more than, almost more than his good barn hand, Curtis Glencross. So, it's all good there.
Good, yeah.
Do you have any fond memories of interviews you have when you've interviewed people? And I guess, Ray, for you, I'll get you to go on the other side. Do you have any fond memories of people that have interviewed you? I'll let you go ahead, Greg.
I guess for me, I'm always a guy that I'm a true believer when we put the CPCA radio together, we broadcast on the stations we broadcast on, as much as we're there to talk about the races and paint that picture, we're there to show the entertainment value and show the characters and the personalities of the drivers and the outriders and sometimes the sponsors that make up the sport of chuckwagon racing. And the fans give a different insight to Ray Croteau Jr., for example. They would have thought he was this quiet, meek, mild kind of guy. And then when they hear him interviewed, they're like, I don't think so.
Or see me on the track for a minute now.
Yeah, or just don't stand too close to the rail. You may hear something out of Ray.
Let me bring in the helmet cam footage that we talked about.
Yeah.
But I think, and sometimes we kind of, we try to be entertaining on radio, and Ray's been on with me, and we have a lot of fun. We're not doing open heart surgery, folks. Don't take this too serious. We're here to have some races. We're here to have a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of fun, and we try to mix that together on radio. And from Ray Croteau coming on with us to Jim Nevada, which if you ever know Jim Nevada, I don't know what's coming out of his mouth, and because he doesn't know what's coming out of his mouth at any given time, so we don't know what's going to happen. And then we added Rio King to the mix over the last few years, and Rio is, when you talk entertainment, there doesn't get any interesting more than Rio King.
He's his own circus.
He is. He definitely. There's not one way to sum up Rio. By just saying it's just real.
Cautiously obnoxious.
Yeah, that's the only way to say it. You just got to meet him. That's just real. That's just how he is.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to you, Croteau.
I think any interview that I was a part of that had really meaning to it was obviously anything to do with my family, the heritage of the time spent invested in the sport and what I was able to learn from them and how I grew as a driver and the people that kind of helped me out throughout the way. And then on the flip side would be any type of charity or, anything we were trying to raise money for, right? So whether it was, the Child Advocacy Center in Calgary and we did one for cancer and Alzheimer's and it just, those are important things, right? So you're trying to help somebody, you're trying to get awareness out, and it's not about me, right? It's about them people and how we can help them and how I have the opportunity to talk to somebody and get awareness and get some donations in or what have you, right? So I think those are my two, probably favorite things, right?
That's great. Now, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, and we're going to talk about going into this year. And we got to talk a little bit beforehand. The number of rookies that are coming into the CPCA is nothing short of awesome. And when I say that, to have this much new interest, new blood, has got to be such a great foundation for what the CPCA is built on.
Yeah, and you know what? Over the last number of years, we've seen a lot of increase of younger drivers coming into the sport. And sometimes they're jumping into the wagon box for the first time. Many are coming from the pony chuckwagon circuit and going up to the big wagons. So right now, as of today, we have 6 rookie drivers. 4 have been officially sanctioned. 2 are still being sanctioned. So we're open. They will get sanctioned. We'll have 6 rookie drivers when we hit the track in the 3rd week of June. So it's an exciting time. And a salute to our board and to the drivers on our board that came up with a mentorship program. So when a rookie driver comes into the CPCA, we team them up with a veteran driver, and the veteran driver usually of their choice and that fits well for them. And that veteran driver's with them. The veteran driver's with them in the morning, the afternoon, probably in the wagon too as an assistant driver, and then after the races. And that means so much to those guys. And I think of a Dougie Irvine, for an example. There wasn't a mentorship program for him. He just had Brian Labicane. Not a bad guy to mentor from, Yeah. So you think of those young drivers that are now veterans of the sport that all had somebody, because some of the drivers coming into our association don't have, 3 generations of drivers in their family. They might be the only member of their family to come into the sport and grab the lines. And I think that's the important thing, because if we rely on the 3rd generation of a family to pick up the lines and continue that heritage, that's when the sport dies. And that's the concern you have, is when all it takes is one member of that family decides, you know what, I know dad did it, grandpa did it, I don't want to do it. And it's done. And that's the concern you have. So now you have rookie drivers, you have the mentorship program, and it's been fantastic.
Well, and to you, Ray, as part of this, it's you were a rookie driver once. What's the advice you'd give to a rookie driver coming into their first year? I mean, you're around it your whole life, but still, you got to be, lack of a better term, you got to be shitting bricks your first couple races.
I think their nerves are definitely a little bit higher than normal, but I think a lot of the people that are becoming rookie drivers have either, the easy one is graduating from an outriding career. The second one is a lot of barn hands, just to name a couple, like Calvin Fiddler was a barn hand for years for Luc Tournier, and they've been around it forever, right? So I think that passion has grown and developed. They've learned how to take care of the horses, learn how to get down the road. They've been in the wagon in front of the crowd through the practice turns. Outside of maybe not breaking the horses as much themselves and being the one having to drive them and know how to get, a horse to work the way you want it or to develop the way you want it. They've been exposed to the sport, right? So, but that being said, you move towards the CPCA and the program they developed. And until I started helping Greg with the radio, I wasn't aware of the mentorship program. And, DJ King was one guy that I seen in the morning jumping in a wagon with somebody that I didn't think was, that part of his team or whatnot. So I noticed this for a couple of days, and there's certain guys that were always out there. They're every morning, always out there. Well, then I learned about the program and how they've designated these drivers to come and help and support these, rookies. And And, there'll be days where they don't need any help, right? They maybe need you to just stand and watch, or they, want you to come in the wagon at the race just for a comfort zone type of thing. But that's thinking outside the box, and that's, showing kudos to the CPCA and the amount of drivers they've developed, because they've developed tenfold compared to the WPCA. Because back when I was a kid, I started in the CPCA, and I, learned from Grandpa. And, a year after Grandpa retired, I started up and traveled with Dad, and then raced in the CPCA for 3 years. And then we decided we wanted to try to take a run at the WPCA there and go and see some of the shows they had to offer, and face up against their competition. And, so if you go back to, like, Buddy Benz Miller, the Tourniers, I don't know. The list is just, it's probably a 4-1 in the WPCA right now, the guys that have come over from the CPCA. So if you want to look at what an association's given back to the sport, you can't overlook it, because the facts are the facts, right? So yeah, it's a heck of a program, and for the rookies that are starting, it's probably the toughest time in this sport to get started, dealing with COVID and all the restrictions, and then, trying to round up sponsors. And in this day and age, you're going to be finding the sponsors that are, still, they're doing okay, but they're as passionate about the sport as you are, and they want to be a part of it regardless of how good their last couple of years have been. So, people have got to open their eyes and see, how much the CPCA is given to the sport. And I'm a huge believer in what they're doing.
Well, and I couldn't agree more. And that kind of leads me into the next question, which I think is super important. The CPCA holds their Tarp auction the end of that second weekend in June. Tell us a little bit about that, Greg.
So it's a CPCA Finals Tarp sale. It's June the 8th. Typically, we have it in April. But welcome to COVID. And things are starting to open up now in Saskatchewan. In Lloydminster, we're quite fortunate. We're on Saskatchewan Health Authority, so things are a little bit more open in Saskatchewan. So June the 8th is the Tarp sale for all the CPCA drivers. It will be outside, and it will be in person. So there's something to be said. People are looking for an event. People are looking, they're Chuckwagon fans or Chuckwagon sponsors, and we're looking forward to a good event June the 8th. It's going to be a bit of a testing rod to see where the money is for a lot of the companies out there that have been sponsors in the past and are maybe potentially going through a tough time since March the 20th or March 2020, since COVID. So we'll see where it's at, but there's a lot of positivity out there. And, Kim Carey is our marketing director, and she's out there knocking on doors, ringing people and sending out emails, seeing what her sponsorship is. And there is positivity out there, but everybody, like COVID, everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen next.
No, that's it. For you, Ray, you've been to a lot of Tarp auctions. You've hung yourself out there. For some of these guys going into this, how much pre-planning can you do prior to the Tarp auction, or is this kind of you're hoping for the best?
I think you got to have your homework done. I've always been, the guy that, had somebody there at the sale and ready to go. So that being said, I've had a couple of years at the Calgary Stampede where, economy's changed, things have changed for the people you had lined up, and, a week or 10 days before the Calgary Stampede, they're saying, yeah, we're not coming. And you show up and you're smiling and trying to meet people as you're, mingling around. And this event's going to be a little bit different and different atmosphere, being outside and trying to, follow the rules and whatnot. But you do get lucky. Obviously, once in a while, you do get lucky. There are those few people that are in the stands and they're there to buy, maybe a cheaper or a decent wagon for something, somebody that don't have a sponsor lined up. So it's probably the most nervous time, because you base a lot of your season off of your income and the income you can generate. That being said, we haven't raced for almost 2 years, and the guys have had time to work and hopefully they did that. With not relying on the sponsorship money as income, and they were able to find some work. Potentially, they saved some money up and got through this time and been able to prepare and understand that probably the tarp sales are going to be down a bit, and there's going to be some lip biting to do after the sale. But if you're passionate about the sport, you're going to find a way, and everybody always does. So I think it's going to be healthy for people to get back into the environment, get back on the racetrack, get back in the grandstand and on the radio, and be able to promote the sport and just enjoy it. Because you look back, and especially for myself, I never skipped a beat. I never had anything ever impact my career, and you took it for granted. Right? You felt like you're untouchable because I'm going to race next year no matter what, or I'm going to work this winter and I'm going to save up and I'm going to get back at her. Well, these guys had the doors shut in their face and had no say. So I think that happening, you're going to really find the people that love the sport, love the horses, and love the environment, and they're going to come back strong and ready to race.
No, that's that. You couldn't have said it any better. It's I guess there's one thing that hasn't happened. The feed bills haven't gone away, and the farrier and vet bills haven't gone away. So if you're someone that's looking to get into part of Chuckwagon racing and get into the CPCA, make sure you hit them up. June 8th, Lloyd X Grounds, your chance to be part of what's going to be a pretty memorable year, I think. Well, before we finish up, just a couple final thoughts, Greg. What do the fans have to look forward to this year?
Racing. As simple as that. Let's just get out there. Let's have some fun. The challenges are going to be in front of us. We're sure hoping that things will open up in Saskatchewan and in Alberta, and we'll be able to race and have full capacity. That's not guaranteed. So we're going to have some challenges, and just like everybody else, you find your way through it and you move ahead. And I know all the members of the CPCA are excited. June 24th is when we hit the track in North Battleford, and we're looking forward to it. 4-day show to kick it off, and I think there's a lot of nervous guys out there not knowing exactly what to expect on June the 24th. But one good thing is you have that date circled on your calendar now. And we couldn't say that a few months ago. So I think more than anything, the fans, the drivers, the outriders, the sponsors, they're all excited that we could have Chuckwagon racing for 3 months. And won't that be fun?
No, it will. And for you, Ray, it's got to be exciting. Kind of back on the radio, getting back into what I don't know that there's anyone that enjoys being around the barns as much as you do. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. That's where you grow up.
Yeah, it's wired into my soul. Like, I don't know how to get rid of it. I don't know how to not listen on the radio or watch on the TV. And then, you go and kind of feed the craving by helping Greg and being a part of the radio show, and then it just kind of amplifies into, well, why am I not out there? And
yeah,
COVID's kind of cured that for me, because I really had a bad itch just before COVID and was just about to jump back in, and fortunate enough to not have 25 horses standing out in the corral and waiting for me to do something with them. But I've decided to just kind of sit back and let the next generation, these rookies that are lined up and everybody else have their turn. And I enjoy the sport as much as anybody, and especially the horses. And I want to talk about them. I don't want to talk about, the old boys and all what we used to do and where we used to go and all the bullshit stories. Like, it's their turn. The limelight should be on them. You need to highlight the CPCA and the WPCA champions and the track record holders and the committees that are involved at the time, and the rest of us, we just turn into dust, just like these buckles.
That's it. There was an important question that came through that I forgot to put on the screen for you, Ray. Can you read that on the bottom of your screen?
Oh, yeah. Please give me the definition of philanthropy. Well, it's
don't do it. Hold on.
You're a philanthropist. You donate money. You help raise money for great causes, right? So,
well done.
He would say something to the effect that I thought Ray would say something to the effect that I don't need medication for that, do I?
Could have been lifelong.
Oh, that's it. Well, before we go, friends, it's time for our Chuckwagon Trivia, brought to you by Cinch Oilfield Hauling. And tonight's question is this. And what I'll get you to do is respond to Let's Talk Chuckwagons, the Facebook page. If you give us your answer on there, we'll pick from everyone that submits an answer over the next 48 hours. And the question is, how many years has Greg Buchanan been with the CPCA? Yeah, you can find it in here. Just watch through and have some fun.
Just to touch on Cinch Oilfield Hauling, they have typically the past that I've been around, the nicest graph and hoodies and hats and stuff on the market. Like, there's no expense spared when it comes to their clothing and everything that they do.
That's awesome. Big thank you to Cole and everyone over at Cinch Oilfield Hauling. Greg Buchanan, thank you so much for your time with us tonight. I imagine you have 37 other things to do before it's bedtime.
Well, watch the Leafs and Canadians. No, thank you for having me, both Ray and Mike. And Mike, open invitation to come to the North American Championship. So feel free to stop in to Lloyd. And Ray, we'll see you in the radio booth.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Ray. Friends, on behalf of all of us here at Let's Talk Chuckwagons, and a big thank you to Limelight Audio Media, as well as Cinch Oilfield Hauling, our friends at Tractorland Kubota. It's been another fun night, and do us a favor. Drink responsibly, drive safe, give your kids a hug. God bless. We'll see you next Tuesday.